Welcome to the Unscripted Narrator. Here's where imagination knows no bounds and the realms of fiction come to life.
Ethan Carver had lived his whole life in the small town of Emmit, nestled in the foothills of Idaho's rugged Sawtooth Mountains. The town, like so many others in the rural West, had a rhythm to it, a slow, steady pulse that matched the seasons. In the spring, the mountains were dusted with snow, and the valley below bloomed with wildflowers. By summer, the sun beat down on golden fields of wheat, and the air smelled of freshly cut hay. In fall, the mountains turned to fire, the trees glowing gold and red, and in winter, the snow came down like a blanket, quieting everything, leaving the world to rest. Ethan had always felt at home in the rhythm of the land, but lately, it had felt like that rhythm was changing. At 23, Ethan was still living at home, helping his father with the farm. His father, Hank Carver, had always been a man of few words. Hard work and silence were his tools, and he passed them down to Ethan from a young age. Ethan's mother, Louise, had passed when he was just a boy, and since then, it had been just the two of them on the farm. Life had always been simple for Ethan: wake up before dawn, work the land, and spend evenings by the fire, the crackling sound filling the space left by his mother's absence. But now, the farm was struggling. The drought had hit hard that year, and crops that should have flourished were withering in the dry soil. Ethan's father had always said you could depend on the land. The land's honest, he'd say, but it don't always give you what you want. But now, even Hank was starting to look wary. His broad shoulders stooped a little more than usual, his face weathered and tired. Ethan had always known this day might come, but he hadn't expected it to feel so heavy. The farm was all he had, all he knew. The thought of selling it, of leaving it behind, was like trying to imagine life without air. One evening, after another day of unsuccessful attempts to repair the irrigation system, Ethan found himself sitting on the porch, staring out over the fields. The sun was setting, painting the sky with pinks and oranges. His father sat beside him, his eyes fixed on the horizon. "You ever think about leaving, Ethan?" Hank asked, breaking the silence between them. Ethan was quiet for a long time. It wasn't the first time his father had asked, but the question always felt like a heavy weight. "Where would I go?" he finally asked. "I don't know, anywhere. Maybe you'd be happier in Boise, or one of those bigger towns. You've got more opportunities than I ever had. It's not too late." Ethan glanced at his father, his eyes betraying a mixture of confusion and frustration. "And leave this? This is all I know, Dad. I can't just walk away from it." His father sighed, rubbing a hand through his thinning hair. "It's not about walking away. It's about doing what's best for you." The word stung. Ethan had always been taught to fight for what you have, to hold on to it with everything you've got. The thought of giving up the farm felt like betrayal, like somehow he would be letting down his parents, his ancestors, the land itself. But as the days dragged on, the pressure mounted. The bills piled up. Hank's health began to deteriorate more rapidly, and Ethan found himself shouldering more of the work, his exhaustion turning to frustration, his patience wearing thin. He spent nights lying awake, wondering if there was a way out, but he couldn't see it. There were no easy answers. Then one day, in the middle of the summer heat, Ethan received an unexpected phone call. It was from Matt Donnelly, an old friend from high school who had moved to Boise to work in real estate. Matt had heard about the troubles on the farm and suggested Ethan come visit, see if there was a possibility for something else, something new. "Just come take a look, Ethan," Matt urged. "You've been working your whole life for this farm, but maybe there's another way. Maybe you don't have to lose everything to find something better." Ethan wasn't sure what he expected, but something about Matt's offer stirred something in him. That night, after dinner, he told his father he was thinking about going to Boise for a few days. "I'll be back, Dad," he said, though part of him wasn't sure. It wasn't the kind of thing he usually did. He was a man of routine, of sticking to what he knew. Hank didn't say much, but there was something in his silence that made Ethan uneasy. It was almost like his father was waiting for him to make the choice to choose between staying or going, between the farm and a future that seemed uncertain, but maybe, just maybe, full of possibility. The next morning, Ethan packed a bag and drove east toward Boise, the endless stretch of highway unfurling before him like a ribbon of uncertainty. As he passed fields, mountains, and the familiar places of his youth, he realized just how much he was leaving behind. But with every mile, there was also the faintest sense of excitement, as if the world beyond Emmit was just beginning to open up. When he arrived in Boise, Matt took him around the city, showing him neighborhoods, job prospects, and a future that felt both strange and thrilling. There were opportunities, real estate, technology, even outdoor adventure guides, which Ethan had always loved. But every time Ethan saw the shiny buildings or the busy streets, something gnawed at him. It wasn't the life he had imagined for himself. It was too fast, too disconnected. By the end of his trip, Ethan knew what he had to do. He wouldn't sell the farm. He couldn't. But he also couldn't keep ignoring the world outside either. The choice wasn't about staying or leaving, it was about learning how to adapt. Ethan returned to Emmit with a plan. He would diversify the farm. He would try his hand at sustainable agriculture, growing organic produce that could reach markets beyond the local area. He would invest in the future rather than fighting against the changing tide. And most importantly, he wouldn't let his father's legacy crush him. It would guide him, but not define him. When Ethan sat down with Hank to tell him, his father listened without interrupting. When he was done, Hank just nodded. "You're your own man, Ethan," he said quietly, "but don't forget where you come from." Ethan smiled. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, he felt ready to face it.
As our tale comes to a close, we hope it has ignited your imagination and left you craving for more adventures. If you enjoyed the journey we shared today, don't forget to show your support by hitting the like button and subscribing to our channel.